questions and get all those burning things off your mind. So we'll set aside a lot of time for that, and then we'll sign some books. So without further ado, I am going to read from the Ruby Circle. This is a chapter that's in Adrian's point of view, and he and Sydney are on a road trip, one of many that occur in this book. They are in beautiful Iowa. It was true. Sydney and I hadn't had anything even remotely close to this kind of freedom in a long time. And even if we were stuck in the middle of the United States instead of some tropical island, the options before us suddenly seemed limitless. After mulling over some internet maps, we finally made our way to Council Bluffs, Iowa. It didn't exactly scream excitement, but that was kind of the point. Most importantly, it was far away from the alchemists in St. Louis, and even farther from Palm Springs, where Alicia was hoping Sydney would show up. We debated checking into a large chain hotel, and finally settled on a small country inn just outside of town. We pulled up to it late in the morning and were greeted by a sign proclaiming, "Welcome to the Black Squirrel Lodge." "Oh no," groaned Sydney. "Please don't let this be like that rabbit place in Los Angeles. I don't know if I can handle a room full of squirrel decor." I grinned, thinking back to the time Sydney and I had investigated another bed and breakfast that had taken rabbits to an unprecedented height in tacky decorating. "Hey, come on," I said. "After everything else we've been through, that'd be the least of our worries." But when we stepped inside, we were pleasantly surprised to see everything was actually pretty tastefully decorated in neutral colors and modern decor. No quilts with squirrels on them, or squirrel-shaped wicker sculptures in sight. The innkeeper, though surprised to see guests this early in the day, was happy to welcome us and get us into a room. "What's with the inn's name?" I asked as I picked the room. The innkeeper, a kindly middle-aged woman, beamed. "Oh, that's in honor of Cashew." "Cashew?" asked Sydney. The innkeeper nodded. "Our resident black squirrel. I'd call him our pet, but, well, he's so much more than that." I peered farther into the lobby. "Does he have a cage here or something?" "Oh no," she said. "That'd be cruel. Also illegal." She shrugged and gestured vaguely with her hand. "Well, he's around somewhere." "What do you mean around?" asked Sydney uneasily. "Like, outside?" "Oh no," said the innkeeper. "Poor thing wouldn't know what to do out there." Sydney's eyes widened. "Wait, if he's not outside, then does that mean—" "Let's get you two into your room," said the innkeeper sunnily. "Got your key right here." The room she took us to had a cozy sitting area and access to a private porch, as well as a big plush bed. After an uncomfortable day of travel, I was looking forward to catching up on sleep and finally getting some real rest. Before I could throw myself on the mattress, however, I knew I needed to get in touch with Nina and tell her the deal was off. When Sydney said she wanted to take a shower, I saw the perfect opportunity. It was just around the time Nina would be asleep, waiting for me to contact her through a spirit dream. I didn't have to be asleep for that, but simply in a meditative state. I sat on the bed, calming myself and closing my eyes, calling on just enough spirit to reach across the dream world to Nina. My tranquil state was shattered, however, when I heard a scream from the bathroom. I opened my eyes and tore across the room, flinging the door open. "Adrian, look out!" cried Sydney. A small, furry black form leapt off the counter, landing right on my chest. Out of instinct, I swatted it off. It landed on the floor and went scurrying off across the room. Sydney, wrapped in a towel, stepped out and stood beside me. "I think it went under the bed," she said. "That thing had better not get on me again," I muttered, walking gingerly over to the edge of the bed. "You've faced much worse than this," Aunt Tatiana said inside my head. "Stop being foolish." Sydney followed, and when I lifted a corner of the bed frame up, she waved her hand in what I recognized as a gesture for casting spells. Seconds later, I felt a breeze stir and blow under the bed, and in moments, the squirrel, Cashew, I presumed, came tearing out and began frantically racing around the room. Sydney, courageously overcoming her earlier shock, darted over to the door that led to the porch and opened it. After a few circuits of the room, the squirrel noticed and ran out. Sydney slammed the door shut behind him, and for several seconds, we both just stood there. "Why?" she asked at last. "Can't anything ever just be simple for us?" Good question, Sydney. A little lighthearted passage for you guys to help soothe the tears that will no doubt come in the rest of the talk. Oh, Richelle, that's so mean. All right. Yeah, we are good to go with some questions. I will talk about anything you want to, books, movies, life lessons, my favorite shows on the CW, whatever strikes your fancy. The only thing I always ask is to be very careful of spoilers, not just in this book, but at the end of any of my books. Sometimes I forget to say that, and without fail, someone will be like, "Hey, why'd you kill blah?" And it's always very sad. So other than that, have at it, and we will chat for a while. Yes?
Will there be any more books in the Game Boy of Gods?
Oh, that's a hot question. Will there be any more books in the Game Boy of the Gods series? Yes. There is a third book. It's actually on my to-do list on my flight back to Seattle tonight to do some work on that. It's called The Eye of Andromeda, which I think is cool, but I'm biased. I do not have a pub date for it, though, so that's the hard part. It's kind of gotten shuffled off in the schedule in favor of the young adult stuff, which is unfortunate, but it happens. So as soon as I know that, I'll post it all over various internet spots. The one thing I can tell you in consolation is that this is kind of cool news. There's a TV company that's kind of interested in it. I can tell you from working with Hollywood, you cannot count on anything until you're like sitting in front of the screen and there it is. So nothing may come of it, but the fact that anyone who's shown interest is kind of cool. So again, we'll stay posted on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes?
Yeah, but with having read your current one, do you have an idea in the back of your head for another series, pulling in some of the characters from Bloodlines and Vampire Academy?
So the question is more continuation in the Bloodlines and Vampire Academy world. It's definitely on the back burner of my mind. There's always like a bunch of ideas on the back burner of my mind. But it's nothing I have concrete plans for. I can't say like, oh, I'm doing this series, it's going to be this date. It's definitely on hold right now. It's good for me to take a break from those guys. It's good for you guys, even though you probably don't believe me. I just need to step back and do that. So there's a million different things I could do. I could always go back to Rose and Dimitri. I could do Jill. I mean, you know, it goes on. So I don't know exactly what it is. I kind of need time to build the idea as well. What I might like to do is maybe some shorts or novellas in the meantime. But again, I've got no concrete schedule on that. So I have new books in the pipeline, which I can pitch to you real quick if you want. The next book coming out for me will be in November, called Soundless. It's a self-standing novel, which is a totally new experience for me because I actually had to end it and not like on a terrible cliffhanger, which is my normal kind of operating mode. It's just like, I'm done with this book. Oh no, they're in peril. But my editor told me I could not do that in a standalone novel. So it's self-contained. It takes place in a fantasy world inspired by Chinese mythology. And the setting is this remote mountain village where no one's been able to hear for generations. They don't know why. They've just come to accept it. And they've developed this whole society around that. They use sign language. Their news is painted each day because they don't have a town crier who can do it. And the protagonist is this teenage girl who's a skilled artist, and so that makes her an important person. And one morning she wakes up and suddenly she can hear. And obviously that's strange. So she goes on a journey to kind of figure out what's going on. And she's accompanied by a young man she used to be involved with, so it's complicated, as it often is in my novels. And so good times ensue. So that'll be November, and then after that, I do have another project which I'm not allowed to talk about. It's a big one, so the standalone is kind of like a little breather before the storm to come. Other stuff. This side of the room? You guys are quiet. There we go.
What is your personal opinion on the Vampire Academy?
My personal opinion on the Vampire Academy movie. I had fun with it, and it's weird. I think it's easier for me than it was for the fans. People will say like, "Oh, don't you want to see all this stuff in your story?" And I'm like, yeah, I did. I wrote it into the first book. It's done. So I was very flexible on what the movie did. I thought they did a fun adaptation. I liked the cast. I liked the writers. You know, they took it in a funnier direction. I was pretty zen about it all. I think the only thing I could have wished, I would have liked it to be longer. They had to kind of smash together some plot lines. But that was an inevitable consequence of budgetary restraints. I can't convey enough how hard it is to make a vampire movie in a post-Twilight world. The producers had, they had the rights for like at least 2 years before they had any action, and that's because they were just getting so many doors slammed in their faces. They go and they're like, hey, we got this cool vampire idea, and it's like done and over. So when they did get financing, I think the budget was $25 million, which sounds like a lot to me, but if you look at like the dystopian flicks out right now, like Divergent had 80 million, The Hunger Games is like 6 figures. So 25 million limits you a lot, and so they were really confined by 1 hour and 45. So that was unfortunate, but I think they did a lot with what they had. The cast really loved their roles, which made it fun when I visited. I would have hated to have all the actors like, oh, this is so stupid, we hate it. They loved it, they were into it, and so all in all, a fun experience. Sold me a lot of books. Is that fire alarm?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Good deal. I've had a lot of things happen at findings, never an evacuation. So. All right, next. You in the fiery heart shirt. Nice.
Thank you. How much research did you have to do for Sydney's character? Because she is very smart and knows a lot. And there are a lot of points in there, especially when she's dating the guy in the coffee house.
Yeah, so the question, how much research do I have to do for Sydney's smarts? I have to do a lot because Sydney is smarter than me, and that makes her incredibly hard to write. And people always think like, oh, you had to do a lot of vampire research. Like, no, I made all that up. It's her stuff that would like consume me for the afternoon. I'd be like, all right, I got to learn everything about vintage Mustangs, so that she can do like her one line, where she's like, oh, it's a, and she just spews out all the stats about it. Same thing, you're right, when she was dating Braden, like all of their conversations had to be researched, and I think the most recent thing was, is it geology in, I think Fiery Heart, where she's talking about all the properties of stone, like cleavage and fractures, so I became a geology expert for the day, and then I promptly forget it all, so yeah, it's in the book and that's it. But yes, you're right, that is the most time-consuming research I have to do for anything in this series. Yes?
Where did your inspiration come for Vampire Academy and Bloodlines, and like in the future, would there be like a Frostbite movie like in the future?
I like how you rolled 2 questions and that were not actually related. No, that's good. They're both good questions, so I'm more than happy to answer them. Vampire Academy inspiration came from a lot of different sources. I've never like struck by, oh, here's the book idea, done and completely ready to go. I think writers are observers of the world. You see things all around you and you kind of file them away. And the premise for Vampire Academy, the Noroi and the Strigoi, came from a little piece of Romanian mythology I read during a class in college where we had a vampire unit, and kids, I just gotta say, go to college because they'll give you credit for stuff like that, and that's pretty cool. So I had read that and I was like, oh, I love that idea about the dead and the undead vampires walking the world, and so that was something I kind of stored away. And then I really wanted to do this strong, kick-ass heroine who was flawed and kind of had to go on a journey of transformation, and so I had that also in my head, and then the romance came to me like, oh, what about this, kind of dangerous teacher-student one, and so all these things eventually, I'm holding on to, and I'm able to be like, okay, let's put them into one thing. We'll take that cool setting, put the girl in there, and so forth, and so that's kind of how it came about. Frostbite movie, following up on the conversation about the movies, there is no movement right now on a Frostbite movie. As far as I know, it's dead in the water. It did not yield a profitable movie profit. It did well with books. Like, the books were great. I got a bump in books, but book sales and movie sales sadly aren't the same thing. So nothing at the moment. I can say the producers, the ones I was talking about, who kept beating on doors until they got a movie, the fact that they can do that is kind of amazing, and I don't think they've given up. Maybe they've taken a break, but they're kind of hardcore, and they're crazy in an awesome way, crazy enough to work, they can make this stuff happen. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if someday I get a call and it's like, hey, guess what? So we'll see, but at the moment, no news on that.
Yes. As you're writing Vampire Academy, and with each ending of each book, do can introduce another character that can be a main character in Bloodlines. Are you aware of that?
I only heard part of that. Were you asking if I was aware that the characters I was introducing would go on to Bloodlines?
Yeah, but for each book, you introduce like one new character that eventually be a main character of Bloodlines.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, was it planned that there was a new character in each book of VA that came into Bloodlines? Not all of them. I originally, around the middle of the Vampire Academy series, I knew it was going to be wrapping up. We're always working 1 to 2 books ahead of what's actually released. And I knew I didn't want to leave that world. I had invested a lot in it, but I did know I needed a break from Rose and Dimitri. They'd gone through a lot. They kind of needed to decompress for a while. So I knew I wasn't going to go on with them. And I thought what I was going to do after Shadowkiss was Jill. That was where she was introduced. But then when I got to Blood Promise, I decided to there was a fire, and then the officials checking on it. When I got to Blood Promise and introduced Sydney, it suddenly hit me that she would be a super cool person to introduce into this world, because she's our first human. And we go through the entire Vampire Academy series through the eyes of someone who's been raised in this world. For Rose, everything around her is just part of life. You know, she looks and it's like, yeah, they're drinking blood, that's totally cool. But when you look at Sydney, an outsider who was not raised in this world, she's like, no, that is so not cool. And it gives you a whole new set of eyes on that. And so that was where Sydney kind of came from as the hero of Bloodlines. And then pairing her with Adrian just seemed awesome because they were so opposite, and I thought that could be fun. Plus, he kind of needed his own story. Yes.
Have you considered writing a book about Declan's life?
So that is almost kind of a spoiler. All I'll say is that the question is if I was going to continue on with a certain character. It's one of those things, you know, there's like a lot on the back burner. My back burner holds a lot of things. It could be, it could not be. I don't have anything definitive. It could be something that comes up. Sorry, I didn't mean to be cagey on that. Yes, in the black.
Or are you planning on doing any more Georgina Kincaid series?
Georgina Kincaid, will I do more? Her series actually wrapped up probably with like the best resolution I've done to date, which is, as I've said, is not easy for me. I would love to come back to her, possibly to write about her, possibly to do a spin-off. But at the moment, again, you know, sorry I sound so repetitive. You know, I've just got all these things I'd love to do, and only so much schedule I can do it. And at the moment in my schedule, the young adult stuff always kind of takes priority, and then my adult slot, so to speak, is taken over by Age of X. So it's something that could happen, but we'd be talking years down the road. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to know how long, on average, it takes you to write a book, and if that is significantly different from the very first one that you wrote.
Question, how long does it take to write a book, and is it different from the first one? Yes, it's very different, because before you get your first book published, you have all the time in the world to write that book. It can take you a month, it can take you 10 years. You know, it's really on you to do it. And then once you sell a book, at least if you're going through a New York publisher like I did, you are suddenly contracted and you get onto a schedule. And there's kind of this, not a joke, just a assumed truth in that world that the second book is always bad. And I think it's because people are suddenly slammed into that schedule. So my books are released every 10 months, pretty much. Let's see, I'd say a first draft, I have done one in 6 weeks. It was not fun, but I've done it. My preferred is 2 or 3 months to knock out that first draft. And then you spend probably another 3 months revising it. The editor sends you back versions. You go through a couple more drafts, fine-tune it. They like to have the books in their final form about 3 months before pub, because they send out early releases, and they've got to print it, of course. So I guess you're looking 6 or 7 months for the life cycle of a book, which I guess is kind of fast. People don't believe it. I'm always flooded with write faster. That is pretty fast. And everyone's different. You'll see middle grade books coming out every 6 months, and so I can't even imagine their turnaround, but that's mine. Yeah. This side, still strong and silent. Okay, yes.
So, how do you like find a book and start to get published when you first got into?
How did I get published? Was that the question? Find a publisher? Okay. When I was trying to get published, that was in 2005, 2006, and the publishing world has changed significantly since then. When I was doing it, pretty much the only reputable way to do it was through a New York publisher. Still an option today. Certainly the most difficult. But I think it's totally worth it. And so what I had to do first was find a literary agent. And that's a person who represents your work to the publishers. And you have to convince them in a one-page letter that your book is the most awesome thing on earth. And that's really hard for some people because you want to tell them all the stuff about your book, but you've really got to sum it up in like a paragraph. And so if they take you on as a client and they reject 98% of their submissions, they then take your book to a publisher and do the same thing. They try to convince them it's the most awesome thing in the world. And publishers, they have to decide what to buy, and then they go from there, and you hope that somebody wants your book. Georgina Kincaid, which actually Succubus Blues was my first novel, that sold pretty quickly, and there wasn't much of an issue with it because someone pulled it off the market pretty quickly. Vampire Academy always surprises people. My agent sent that out to 10 publishers, and 9 of them rejected it. But it only takes one, and they believed in it, and that's what you want. You need someone who's willing to live and die for your book. And that was Razor Bill, who I am still with and does great things for my books. So that was how I got involved. Nowadays, there's all sorts of things. There's the big, the small ones. There's self-publishing. There's Amazon. So there's a lot of different options. I'm kind of the opinion that the more work you have to go through to get published, I think the more likely your book has a chance of being successful, and that's just my opinion. So going the New York route is hard, but I think it's rewarding. Anyone who says click this ad and we'll publish your book, which would be very easy, I think that is your least chance of success. And there's a whole bunch of middle ground. So anyone trying to get published, the bottom line is do your homework extensively before you turn over your rights. Okay, I think we got time for a couple more. All right. Okay. Yes.
Are you going to be revisiting Dark Swan?
Dark Swan, same answer as everything else. It's there. I mean, I thought I ended it. I liked my edgy, open ending. Fans did not like that ending. And I'll be honest, when people are like, the fans don't like that, I'm usually like, sorry guys, you didn't write the book. But Dark Swan is one that kind of sticks with me because I would personally kind of like to expand that ending too. So it could happen, but again, just so much stuff. My book production has slowed considerably since having kids. Getting out 2 books a year is actually pretty good in the publishing world, but I used to do like 4 a year, and just kids all the time. So yeah, we'll get to it someday. Okay, in the back.
Do you believe in writer's block? And if you do, how do you work past it?
Do I believe in writer's block? No, it's a myth. No, it is real. It is real. Writer's block is real. How do I get through it? My biggest way is to avoid it in the first place. So everyone's got their own writing style. There are authors who can sit down, they have no clue what they're going to write that day, and boom, magic happens. That is not me. If I sit down without a plan, nonsense is going to happen. So I have to plan my book thoroughly. And I usually start just like with a whiteboard and I'm sketching like random ideas. And then I kind of do a bullet point list, and then eventually I work into an outline, a very detailed document. Actually, I was working on one just today, and it's the book. I haven't even gotten through the whole book. So far I've got 10 pages of outline in this book. And for me, that's my game plan. Each day when I sit down, I look at the outline, okay, here's what we're typing today. And that is huge for preventing writer's block. I found when I do get it, it's usually because I cheated in the outline and didn't flesh out something. So for people that do get writer's block a lot, that may be something they need to address. You may need a plan before you can write. When I do get it, there's a couple of ways to deal with it for me at least. Sometimes doing anything that's not writing helps. I remember being stuck and I suddenly got the solution, taking my kids to the zoo. It's weird how it happens. When you're on deadline and the book's due in 2 days and you're stuck, for me, you just slop something out and hope that in the next draft you can revise it. Yeah. I think this is going to wrap up our questions. I got a couple of things to tell you before we move on to the next step. First of all, is stay where you are. Do not start moving, because the good people here are going to direct you into an orderly system amongst all this chaos. What I'm going to tell you is I know people really want pictures, and I am open to that, but as you see, there are a lot of people here. And it's not a big deal when pictures take a long time for the people at the front of the line, but by the end, like 3 hours later, the people at the end are testy, because they've been waiting a long time. So what really helps, we're going to have a chair, I call it the hot seat, next to my table. If you want a picture, just let us know as soon as you get up there, because we're going to do it while I sign. The important thing is that I don't stop signing. I must keep signing. And you will see I can look up for a picture and talk without even looking at what I'm doing. So what's great, hop in the chair, tell us you want a picture, get a friend to use your camera, or give it to a bookstore staff person, and we will do it in the stride of signing. It really speeds things along, and I will appreciate it, not just for the people in line, but also because I have a flight to catch today. So that would help. That's all I got for you. If you've got any more questions, you can ask them at the table. And I'm going to turn it over to this team. Thanks, you guys.
Let's give one more great round of applause for Richelle. That's great. So everyone hang tight. We're going to have